What's good, beautiful people? We are back with this week's edition of Free Thought Friday. And this week's Free Thought Friday is much lighthearted. It's much more lighthearted than last week. I have jokes on this one. But yeah, this one has to do with speciesism and like not from the perspective that you guys are used to hearing about it. Because usually people think about it in terms of like promoting like vegetarianism and veganism. Like, animals are people too, and like I am not disagreeing with that as a fundamental statement, but it's just really interesting to me that like people stop there. Like, I guess it's because animals are motile, like they are mobile, they can move around, and they can make, noises that we can hear. So that makes people be like, it's alive, look at it. You know what I'm saying? That cow has complex, like emotions. And like, I'm not saying that cows do not. Bees have very, very intricate societies, as do ants. Like, I am in no way discounting the persondom of animals. But why do y'all stop there? Why? Because like, plants are people too. Plants are people too. If animals are people, plants are people too. Mushrooms are people. Fungi is people. Like, have you met trees? Have you met trees? Like, trees are freaking more people than most people. They have so much personality in terms of like, think about just the variation in how each tree decides to grow. Like, some be like, all straight and stoic, and then some be like, ow, funky with a gangster lean. And like, that's personality right there. Like, that is variation that is, as varied and as nuanced as people. And this isn't just me, waxing poetically about like, plants are people too. Like, they have done studies where they like, put electrodes on plants, and like basically they scream when they're being cut. The plants scream when you cut them. So like, you're not necessarily like some huge humanitarian just because you're like, I don't eat animals, because like, the lettuce doesn't want to be eaten either, bro. Like, everything that is life wants to live. Like, you know what I'm saying? Apparently, the smell that grass gives off when it's being cut is like, it's basically like the smell is like it being like, what the fuck is happening? So like, I'm not, advocating that you don't eat anything, because it's like, Imah, if we can't eat plants because they're people, and we can't eat, animals because they're people, what can we eat? And I'm just saying that, there's a circle of life. There's a circle of life. And I think that our focus should be more on gratitude, expressing gratitude, like in the way that, Native Americans used to do when they, harvested their crops, and also when they like, killed their animals to eat. Like, it was always a very sacred and reverent thing. Now, I might be a little biased, as I grew up within Islam, and they still have a certain element of that in terms of halal, in terms of the way that they are, supposed to kill things, and they're, supposed to pray over it. And that in and of itself is just like, hey, like, thank you for your life force. Thank you to the creator, you know what I'm saying, for creating you for our sustenance. And like, thank you to the whole circle of life, like all the grass that you ate, all the, the sun that grew the grass, and the breeze and the water, and like the soil that nurtured you. And like, I feel like we should come from a space like that. I tend to do that when I eat my food now. Instead of just saying like a basic grace, like I get into it. I tend to thank all the ingredients, all the constituent parts for their participation in the nourishment of my body, because we have to be nourished out here. I just think that there are more reverent ways that, we can go about it, and that honor the life in all things, because like, yeah, plants are people also. And it's so weird to me that like people just don't acknowledge that. It's like, I guess because, also animals have faces, like they have eyes and like, mouths and things. So we're like, hey, I can see myself in you. Look, that pig just smiled at me. Don't turn it into bacon. Make it babe instead. Like, you know what I'm saying? So I get that about humans. But nah, everything is people. Everything is people. I like personally with my aloe plant, like, and with aloe plants I've had in the past, like I have an agreement with them. I'm like, I'm not finna just be like cutting you without permission for like my own like use and everything. If anything, I'll go to the store and get one of those like, bigger aloe plants that like, and maybe that's not right. But I take any like, fallings that it has as like an offering, but I'm not finna just be like hacking away at you and then like watering you the next day. It's like a weird dynamic, and it makes me uncomfortable. But just plants are people, and speciesism is a thing. And just because you don't understand the way that something communicates doesn't mean that it's not attempting to communicate with you. Trees are hella expressive, and I feel like, to be on my Pocahontas shit, if we could like, sit and really listen to nature, we would get a lot of insight and a lot of messages. And yeah. I think that's all she wrote for today. But yeah, plants are people, and fuck, industrial farming across like the platforms, because like that shit's not cool. Like, it shouldn't be like a conveyor belt where like things only live their lives and like only see the inside of like pins and like never actually get to like live and be free, and then like they just die. Like that's not, I don't think that's cool at all. So I'm not out here like advocating for like, what farming has become under capitalism, but that's what farming has become under capitalism, which is more a knock against capitalism than against meat consumption in general, because I feel like there are ethical ways that it can be done. Like, I don't know about anybody else, but when I get me some land, I plan on raising me some things, and I plan on eating some of the things that I raise, both, plant and animal. But I'm gonna be real respectful about it. I'm gonna be real thankful. I'm gonna try to use every part of, whatever, just so nothing goes to waste and like its sacrifice is truly honored. But I'm not one of those like squeamish people that's like, I could never, because honestly, I think that is also like a delineation with people, because there are some people who are like, I could never like, like kill a chicken and like eat it and all of the things like, and I think if that's how you're internally wired, then maybe you just naturally are a vegetarian. But there are some people who are just like, bro, what? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I remember, this is a funny story. Lamb chop used to be my shit when I was a kid. And lamb meat also used to be my favorite. But my mother would not tell me what type of meat it was whenever we ate it, because she was like convinced that I was going to be like traumatized to be like, oh my God, I'm eating lamb chop, right? And I think the moment that I realized that I was like a little bit like I was a true carnivore, like I'm about this meat eating life, and everything in moderation, and I try to balance it out and eat much more leafy greens. Like there are days where I don't eat meat at all, like, I'm saying, in terms of like honoring my body's natural rhythms. But like once I found out that like lamb was like lamb chop, it actually made me like appreciate both like the creature and like the puppet even more, because I was like, oh my gosh, you're hilarious and delicious. Best, one of the best animals ever. Like they're cute, they're delicious, like they're just out here winning, bro. And lamb is also one of the reasons that I absolutely refuse to like never consume meat again. Because have you tasted lamb, bruh? Have you tasted it? Like, mind you, I'm a big fan of beef also. Not so much a fan of chicken unless it's like a fried wing. But like, have you, and like, there's something to be said for like a good cut of steak. Like, I'm saying, like something, I'm saying? But lamb by far is like, I don't know what God was doing. Maybe it's because it's the Lamb of God, because them things are scrumptious, like diddly-umptious, like. But enough about me and my personal preferences when it comes to meat. But yeah, man, yeah. Plants are people too, and I think that we should take that into account, because like your arugula did not want to die either. It doesn't want to die any more than like, the baby calf being made into veal. But just because you can't, it's like if a tree falls in the woods doesn't make a sound, like just because you can't hear the lettuce scream doesn't mean that it enjoys like when you rip it to shreds. Like I just want people to be mindful of, like, once again, the automatic, thoughts that we tend to think, and like the predispositions that we have in terms of just being biased to certain levels of life based on perceived consciousness, because actually pretty much everything that is alive is sentient. And I feel like that would strengthen our connection with nature if we thought of it on that level, as opposed to just like, this stratification and qualification that we have in terms of like what qualifies as like persondom and makes people. Because like white people used to say black people were animals back in the day, just because like they didn't speak our language and couldn't understand us, and like they like literally that they came to Africa and they were like, oh look, like literally the freaking Aboriginal people of Australia were classified as part of the flora and fauna up until like the fucking 70s. They were actively still counting them as like not people. So like I think the line of like what's a people is very precarious, and we should just make it more expansive, and not so much limited to what we perceive as like, on our level, because trees are much wiser and have a lot more knowledge than the average human being, bruh. I'd rather spend a day with most trees than with most people. It would be a much more uplifting experience. I would be giving carbon dioxide. It would be giving oxygen. Just right there is a much more even exchange than you get with like 80% of humans. Because they have a tendency to want to like take and give nothing back. But that is a very human thing, and that's why I think that we should express more reverence for plants, especially you vegans and you vegetarians. Thank that plant for its life force contributing, to the nourishment of your body in its biomass. And once again, I'm not prescribing you guys to do anything that I don't do myself. But yeah, plants are people, and people are people, and animals are people, and mushrooms are definitely people. I don't know if anybody has ever had a conversation with the shrooms or any of the other hallucinogenics, but them joints is people for real. So yeah, just a little reverence goes a long way in terms of showing appreciation for the exchange. You know what I'm saying? Because we have to eat to live, you know, unless you're like a breatharian. And like, shout out to the breatharians, and like, you know, people who can just sustain themselves by, like, you know, osmosis. I be drinking my chlorophyll and I be sitting in the sun, and sometimes I'd be like, ooh, maybe I don't need to eat right now. But even that is, you know, the chlorophyll isn't naturally, you know, forming within my body. So like, I'm grateful to the alfalfa that made that chlorophyll, you know what I'm saying? And also the hands that picked it, like, you know, the whole cycle and circle of creation, because it's beautiful. And I just think we should take time to honor it. So this is your friendly neighborhood Imah X, and this has been this week's Free Thought Friday. Free your mind, and the rest will follow. Imah out.